All right, and hello again, everybody, and welcome back. I'm continuing my discussion about the weight of the robot and the use of hydraulic cylinders. There's a hydraulic cylinder to power the robot, or to be the movement, the prime movers of the robot. This is a rendering from Keyshot. I needed to have the weight of the robot, and this is the foot of the robot. That's the big toe and the little toe, and the foot swings back and forth this way to get eversion and inversion, and then it swings this toe up, this heel up, it swings around this joint to get plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. And I took all of the various parts of the robot and broke them all apart, and in my drawing program it tells you what is the cubic inches of the part, and I created some texture files to keep track of it, and that's what we're working on. And we'll have some more information about that. I guess the first thing we ought to do, though, of course, is just take a look at what's on the screen. Now, this is the screensaver from Bing. Walruses. This, I think, is near Norway. I like to think of this as, these are, for example, over here is a very famous robot researcher who already knows that hydraulic cylinders won't work. And this is a very famous integrated circuit provider. They create Wi-Fi and cell phone transceiver chips for cell phones. This is a corporation that's well known for making central processing units for computers. Over here is a company that makes hydraulic parts and pumps, and they're all just looking at me saying, you talk about whatever you want to, but why are you bringing this to our attention? And my reply is, there's a lot of money to be made if you will understand that hydraulic cylinders are the answer to the issue. But I have to talk them into it anyway. So we'll go back to our picture here and look at our other picture. And we always want to open with this and remind everybody, hello and welcome, and I'm glad you're here. I am glad you're here. Have fun, enjoy. I do have a YouTube channel, and I invite you to subscribe. I think you'll enjoy it. I have a web page or a website, and there are web pages inside the website, and I'm putting all this stuff on the page named Hydraulic Walking. This structure where I split out the cubic inches of the robot, that I created as an FBX file and put it on my website on this page. So you can go to that, and it's a free download. And if you want to, you can open your own 3D drawing program and 3D print a version of the robot for yourself. Again, remember that you're creating a structure, and I always want to remind everybody, with physically real structures, any physically real object could hurt somebody. My advice is, if you're managing a physically real object, you should manage it in a manner that is legally allowed and reasonable and safe. And if you can't manage it in that way with these criteria, then my advice is, do not create it as a physically real item. And on the topic of downloading the FBX, and it is a zip file, so you have to extract it once you get it. And one of it is the texture file, and the other part of it is the FBX. But you can shrink the size of the robot. You can make a little 2-foot tall version of the robot if you wanted to. The 6-foot tall version, by my calculations, requires 670 cubic inches of material, and you can print it for yourself on your own printer if you want to. And now we'll go do some more discussion on this topic. Yeah, that's one complete structure. Now this is the other complete structure, and this has to go into that. And so that means, yeah, see this one here? that one would have to be separate, because the only way to get this together would be to move that out and then drop this into place and move that back. But this is how you would print it with 3D plastic, because why would you want to print all these parts if you don't have to? So that's the foot except for the toes. And the next one I did was the ankle and lower leg. So here is the ankle, here's the parts of the ankle. I can talk about that. This ankle is a very particular drawing concept, which is that I've got this wall here that keeps getting in the way. I wanted for human mimicking robots, the feet go beside each other. The foot that's in the back becomes the foot that's in the front, and it's swung forward, and they go near to each other. So I wanted these two hydraulic cylinders to be where the long axis of the cylinder was the same as the long axis of the lower leg. And I really wanted where if this cylinder adjusted dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, that this cylinder adjusts eversion and inversion, and I wanted it where motions of this one did not really affect this one, so that if the central processing unit wanted to change dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, it didn't have to simultaneously try to change eversion and inversion. And I did that by putting a follower arm in here, where when you do dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, it moves the eversion inversion piston too. And I can explain that in more detail, but I have to be careful, because it may be that doesn't really interest you, but that's what that's all about. And this is the ankle and lower leg, and so you can see here are those cubic inches of this, and of interest, this distance, this amount of material right here is 0.9179 square inches. And the yield strength of 2205 alloy stainless steel is 65,000 pounds per square inch. So 65,000 times 0.917. So if you put a tensile load on this lower leg, it would hold up 59,000 pounds. If you put a compression load on it, it would hold up, basically compression is half of tensile, so it would hold up 30,000 pounds. And this lower leg weighs 9.07 cubic inches. And the density of the alloy stainless steel was, I can't remember what it is. The density is 0.283 pounds per cubic inch. So 0.283 pounds per cubic inch times 9.007. So this lower leg that can support 30,000 pounds weighs 2.5 pounds. All right, so I have mentioned the value for these cubic inches, and I did put them in a spreadsheet. So this is one of the toes or the heel. They're all the same. And here are all the little parts, and that's how many cubic inches it is. This is the foot, not including this, and that's how many cubic inches that is. So if you have a big toe, a little toe, a heel, and the rest of the foot, that's the cubic inches of the foot. And so that's how this works. This is the ankle and lower leg. And that's in my drawings. And so you go down there, and that's how many cubic inches are in the ankle and lower leg. That's the knee and the thigh. This is the hip and the pelvis, not the main pelvis girdle. So that's one hip on one side, and that comes to 74 cubic inches. The pelvis girdle is 25 cubic inches. So the right foot, 2 toes and a heel. This is the summing up the entirety of the robot. But then we have to look at the thorax and the head. And so that's what that is in cubic inches. And the last thing is the shoulder. The shoulder is very complicated because I had to get all those ranges of motion into a very small structure. But it's 67 cubic inches. And so the whole entire robot is feet, ankles, lower and upper part of the leg times 2, thorax, and oh, here's the forearm. I didn't put the hand in there, the thorax and the head, the shoulders, the forearm, the whole robot, 669 cubic inches. So that's where all that came from. And remember, say you wanted to make a robot that was 1/2 that size. It isn't 1/2 of 669. It's 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. It's interesting. All right, and we'll go back and look at some more of that video. And the only reason I say all this is like, why are they not making robots this way? It's amazing to me. I'm like, what is going on here? But they don't. Okay, that's the ankle and lower leg. The next one is the knee and the thigh. And it goes on and on like that. Oh, and so if you wanted the ankle and lower leg, again, if you wanted to print, this was put together to be created out of alloy stainless steel with parts that are at least feasible to make them out of alloy stainless steel and bolt it together. But if you were going to make it out of 3D printed plastic, this entire structure here could be created as one structure out of plastic if you're going to make the plastic robot. And so that's the, and I'm going to put this on my website as a file that's free for download. There's the knee and the thigh, here's the hip and the pelvic girdle, and here is the thorax and the hand, and here is the shoulder. And the shoulder is very complicated, but I made the shoulder in a very specific way so that all of the features of a human shoulder were in this structure, and this structure is not that big. And this is another one of these structures where, let's just take a look at this one, for instance. This is the pin that allows abduction and adduction of the shoulder. 0.189 square inches. £12,000 pounds. So, and that's the tensile. So the shear is 6,000 pounds. But there's two of them. There's a pin here and a pin there. So this arm of this robot can pull on this shoulder of this robot with 6,000 pounds of force. All right, and she has grabbed my arm and is pulling me away from the microphone, and her eyes have that look. It's not 6,000 pounds of force, but she's pulling. Oh, I'm out of time. That's what it is. All right, well, I'll stop here and we'll start again with the next one.